It's time for the Josh Kirby on Sports podcast.
On this edition of the Kirby on Sports podcast, week one of the regular season is finally here. We have in-depth breakdowns from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Dallas Cowboys, Washington football team and the Los Angeles Chargers, Kansas City versus Cleveland, and Baltimore versus Las Vegas, plus rapid fire and what to look out for in week two. All coming your way next. You're listening to the Kirby on Sports podcast.
I'm glad you connected. This is Dave Johnson, voice of the Washington Wizards. You have connected to the right place because you are listening to my man, Josh Kirby on Sports Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, the wait is finally over. Regular season football in the NFL is back. And we are glad you have tuned in to the Kirby on Sports Podcast to get three people's analysis on the past week's games. We're looking forward to it. Before we move any further, though, we would like to thank our sponsors, Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and our brand new sponsor, Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate. Without our sponsors, the Kirby on Sports podcast would not be where it is today. Big thanks to Productions by Quet and Dave Johnson as well. I am joined in the three-man booth by Dan Demski. Find him on Twitter at Dan_Demski97. And Carlos Martinez. The three-man booth is back for another season of NFL football. Gentlemen, we finally made it.
So I'm
Something's
not
missing with that
anymore?
intro a little bit.
What the hell?
Okay.
I worked hard for that nickname.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention, Carlos is the Swiss Army knife.
God, no respect around here, man.
That was a mistake. I
None respect on his name.
Anyways, glad to be here. Ready to talk about week one.
Same. Likewise.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready for week one and all the way down.
Boys, we're all losers here. None of our teams won.
It was a rough weekend.
Boy,
we all took hard L's.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, for 31 teams, their fight to go to the Super Bowl is underway, and it's going to be a very exciting regular season for sure.
Wait, 31?
Yeah.
Don't you mean 32?
No, the Washington football team's already eliminated.
Fair enough.
That's fair. Yep.
Fair enough.
When he said that, I had a feeling he was going to roast Washington.
That was a great setup, Kirby.
Yeah.
I'll give you that one. That was a great
good.
setup.
That was good.
That was beautiful. This is why you're the host.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you. So without further ado, I think the pleasantries are done, fellas. I think it's time we hit down to the road and start talking some football. And first and foremost, let's talk about the first game that was to open up week one. The Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers raising their Super Bowl, whatever you call it, wasn't a banner or whatever, but
it was a sign.
It was a sign, the Super Bowl sign. I mean, the banners are a lot better in my opinion, but what do I know? Washington hasn't won one in my lifetime. So anyways, Tampa Bay 31, Dallas 29. I will start before I let you all go by saying, first and foremost,
he's going to take like all my talking points, but it's fine.
First and foremost, Dallas looks absolutely scary. Their defense has improved from what I've seen. Dak Prescott, there were concerns on if he's going to be 100%. I think those concerns are going out the window because you've seen what Dak Prescott can do. He threw just over 400 yards in that game with 3 touchdown passes. I mean, it was a great game all around. There were some, it's time to stop doubting Tom Brady. If he comes back for another season, just know he's going to perform like he's still in his prime.
Hold on. Who's doubting Tom Brady?
That's what I'm saying. Where the hell did you get that talking point?
We just can't bet against Tom Brady anymore.
Did any of us here bet against Tom? Because I remember distinctly putting in our group message, shit, we left too much time for Tom Brady.
No, I'm just saying in general, you can't doubt Tom Brady anymore because
I don't think anybody's doubting him anymore. So
no, I don't think so.
Let's move off of that talking point.
Okay, but anyways, Tom Brady's back. Just shy of 400 yards in this game. He did throw 2 early interceptions that helped Dallas, but that game, it was down to the wire. But I'm going to say this. If your field goal kicker, if Dallas's field goal kicker makes all their field goals, they win that game. I'm going to go out and say they would have won if he made all his field goals. And I was sort of surprised at a 60-yard field goal attempt. But, I mean, other than that, great game to start the NFL season.
That 60-yard field goal attempt was moronic. I don't understand why we did that.
I don't know why either. That made absolutely no sense to me.
I don't think Tampa ended up scoring after that. So, it ultimately didn't cost us anything.
But great game to start the NFL season for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Carlos.
Oh, is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I mean, yeah, it was a good game. I definitely left more compared to like last season or like past Cowboys losses. You leave a little more optimistic as a Cowboys fan because of how well the team performed against the champs. But at the same time, you're a little disappointed because you're like, we had that game won. Like, all we had to do was, like I said, like, because we have our group message, and when we were all watching the game at the same, well, Kirby I think fell asleep at the end, but like
I got to train myself to stay up for these late games.
I mean,
he's a lightweight when it comes to that. I think.
Thanks, Dan.
The man's not a night owl. I definitely am. I'm not sure about you, Carlos.
I mean, I'm able to stay up. I mean, I only need like 4 hours of sleep and I'm good. But so that's why I was able to stay up for that game. Although for the Ravens game, I won't lie, I fell asleep after like in the middle of the third quarter. But we'll get to that. But when it came down to like, we should have won that game. Like we had the missed field goal, the missed PAT, extra point or whatever. We just left too much time on the clock. Like we scored that last touchdown and then they pan to the shot of Brady and he's just got this like that look. And when I saw that, that's when I sent the message to you guys like, shit, we left too much time for Brady. And then I think, Dan, you were trying to be optimistic and I'm pretty sure you tried to be like, no, they just got to make a stop. I was like, it's over. It's over. Like, we're not going to win this game. A minute 24. That's Brady's bread and butter right there.
Yep.
Ultimately, the weakness for this Dallas team is still its defense. I think our defense played good, not great. I think our issues are primarily in the secondary because Brady lit it up. I mean, damn, almost 400 yards passing, 379 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Those 2 interceptions were kind of, I don't really think they should count against Brady, to be honest, because one was a tip pass and then one was like a Hail Mary at the end of the half that, that was anybody's ball. And then, so like Brady lit it up. Micah Parsons is one guy I want to highlight. Like he played decent. He was a little lost out there at times. And then but like I said, I think our issues are primarily in the secondary. I don't think Trayvon Diggs is a number 1 cornerback. I think he's a number 2. I think Dallas messed up by not trying to get like, well, obviously we know he's got his issues now, but like a Richard Sherman or trading for Gilmore from New England. I think we definitely should have pulled the trigger on that because, again, that's been the issue with Dallas for the past few years. Our secondary has been, very weak. And like when we had, but when you think about who we used to have, we had Byron Jones at one point, and then we lost him 2 seasons ago. Last season or this past offseason, we lost Awuzie. And then so you move Diggs to the number 1, but then like there's not really great depth behind him. I mean, I forget which one of our cornerbacks it was that was defending Antonio Brown on that long touchdown, but he got completely smoked the whole game. Antonio Brown was lighting him up. So like our defense is still our weak point, but Dan Quinn definitely has this defense more organized and like situated to succeed compared to what we had last season, where after game 1, I was like, this defense isn't going to do anything. At least this defensive scheme and this group of players looks like they're going to actually put up a fight, but they're not going to be the reason why we win games. The reason why we're going to win games is because of our offense. And that's where we get to this. Now, Dak Prescott coming into the game, a lot of questions were coming about him with obviously coming off the injury. He didn't play all preseason, so we never got to really see how he looked like. Obviously, he had the shoulder injury coming in or during camp, so that's what really put him out. He was on a pitch count for a little bit. But man, did he look good. That boy balled out on Thursday. And I mean, I was so impressed. I mean, we saw it last season. When Dak is playing, the Cowboys offense just looks so much better and like just well organized, and it just flows better when Dak is in compared to when, say, Andy Dalton was in or Ben DiNucci was in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on the practice squad still,
Hey, Ben DiNucci, man, JMU.
Oh, well, yeah.
He was thrown into a really shitty situation last year, though. So
yeah, but
you can't really blame him.
Obviously, I mean, people were kind of railing against Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, that the game plan was not to run, because that defensive front for Tampa Bay was damn near unstoppable. And our line held up pretty well. But I mean, when it came to the running game, Zeke couldn't get anything going, but Zeke contributed in other ways. The way he blocked for the passing game was where he really, really like contributed to the team, because he was giving Dak Prescott more time to throw. And people got to understand, like, it's not all about the rushing yards and stuff like that. It's about the dirty work too, which is blocking and all that. Like, Zeke did a pretty good job. Obviously, our offensive weapons are off the charts. I still think we need to find a better answer at tight end. I still wish Dallas would trade for Zach Ertz from Philly, because they're not really using him.
That'd be filthy.
Yeah. That actually
add him to that offense, and
that would be Zach Ertz on Dallas.
Yeah, another big target because I mean, they're using Dallas Goedert over there. They're not even using Zach Ertz anymore. I mean, I think Zach Ertz is a free agent this year, if I remember correctly, after this season. So, maybe Dallas will be able to sign him. I don't know. But I wish Dallas would get him, because I don't feel like our tight ends are necessarily the best that we have right now. But in terms of wide receiver, I mean, we lost Michael. Was it Michael Gallup that we lost? Yeah, we lost Michael Gallup. He'll be out for a few weeks. But CeeDee Lamb, I mean, he had a couple drops, but in the biggest moments, he definitely rose like to the occasion and actually caught the ball. And obviously Amari Cooper is so underappreciated. I mean, nobody really talks about him, and that's because he's been hurt a lot. But like, when he's healthy and he's playing, he's the best route runner in the league, in my opinion. And he's such a reliable wide receiver. And then, so given all that, you do leave with more optimism. Now, we have a tough game, obviously, coming up with the Chargers, but I feel like the Cowboys definitely played well. We should have won, but ultimately Tampa Bay, Tom Brady did Tom Brady shit. And I mean, there's not much else to say. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Dallas came out, I think, came out with a moral victory, but we don't want to hold on to that. We still got to win games and we got to win this division. I think we're the most dangerous team.
Yeah, as a Cowboys fan, Carlos, were you upset about the loss, or did you come away feeling optimistic that there would be better things to come?
I mean, I just said it. You leave feeling more optimistic than down. It seems to be the consensus in the fan base. Everybody seems to be very high off of, it was a loss. Like, it still counts as a loss. But like, one, we knew we were probably going to lose, but I didn't think I thought we were going to lose by 2 touchdowns, to be honest. I thought it was going to be something like a 35 to like 21 game or something like that. I didn't think it was going to be a 31-29 where Dallas was leading with 1:24 left.
Dan, we were watching that game together. I want to get your thoughts. What'd you see that was different from me? Because I know we were in the same room, sort of conversing back and forth about it.
Well, I mean, Carlos touched on pretty much everything. I think that, to see CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper this year in this offense is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, those two guys, I mean, they dominated this game, even though, they went up against an offense that played barely better than they did. Those two guys alone were just fantastic. Amari Cooper had 13 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
That's
just
incredible.
Insane numbers. Also, it's just great to see Dak not only back, but to perform at this level. Kind of like he did, 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe even further back now. Maybe Carlos could correct me on that.
I mean, last year he was on a historic, season.
True.
Like, statistically, he was playing pretty well until he got hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
That could happen again this year. God forbid he stays healthy. I mean,
we got we got some injuries that happened over the past few days. So, also, who is it? Looney? Was it Looney who's suspended because he failed the test?
Yeah, I heard about
so
that.
We're missing our right tackle again, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
we get Zach Martin back though.
That's a big addition back. Zach Martin's key. The offense was just dominant and played against a Tampa Bay defense who the last year was one of the tops in the league. So I think that's also what I take away from this too, is just how well Dallas's offense played against that defense. It's not like they were going out there and playing the Giants or something. No offense to
but one thing we do have to
they did have a couple.
Is there was injuries to that.
They did have a couple injuries
during the game, and then before the game, what was their starting safety was not activated or something like that.
Still, I mean, your quarterback throws for 400 yards. That's hard to find.
I find it very impressive that in this first game, both teams had under 70 yards rushing. That's how confident these two teams were in the throwing abilities of their quarterback, even Dak Prescott, with the questions concerning his injury and if he's 100%, in which he's proven that he's 100% ready to perform and possibly on another career season this year.
Well, that might have been the point for the Cowboys too, is to have him throw it 45, 50 times just to show that, he can do it. That's probably wasn't in the game plan, but when you see a shootout like this game was, you're just going to see naturally more passes thrown. So that's kind of what I gather from that. And like Josh mentioned, I mean, if you had another kicker than Zerline, you all win this game. I mean, to miss a 31-yarder and an extra point, was just killer.
Yeah,
that's 4 points off the board right there. So
that's 4 points that would have won the game.
Exactly.
One thing Dallas has to improve on. You can't expect to win every football game with Ezekiel Elliott only rushing for 33
We
yards.
just talked about that, Kirby.
I know.
I've already told you it's more than just the rushing thing. We were passing all over that team, so we almost won the game by just passing. Yeah. So don't try to bring up that point of you can't win. Yeah, obviously you can't, but sometimes that's not what we need from Zeke. Sometimes what we need from Zeke is to make the blocks, and gives Dak some more time to be able to make the correct pass. That's that's all we needed from him for this game. We didn't need him to be 100+ yard rush. Now it would have helped if he
Right.
could have, done it, but that's not what we needed.
I understand completely. Yeah, he made the blocks like you said, but I mean, I still think in some games you're going to have to rush for more than 33 yards, which wasn't needed, but that was just one of my things. That's all. But
Yeah. So I think that's all I have to say for Dallas. I mean, and like Carlos kind of said, I mean, Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay, they find ways to win, man. And you just can't count them out. You give them a minute 24, on the clock, it's Tom Brady. He's going to beat you 9 times out of 10. It's just how he is. It's how he's always been throughout his career. And a couple crazy stats with this game. Antonio Brown, 5 catches, 121 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he was about as good as we've seen him in a long time.
yeah, that is impressive.
He looked like the old Antonio
The
Brown.
old,
yeah.
Because
Exactly. You hear the name Antonio Brown and it's like he's in the game for 1 week and then suspended by the NFL, all this
Right.
and all that. But it seems like he's found his niche, his home in Tampa Bay, and he's performing like he used to.
Yeah, and it's funny because before this, Bill Belichick tried to turn him around and things like that, and he couldn't do it. And
he only lasted like a week in New England, and then all that the sexual assault allegations came out, and that's
he was
when
out
they cut him. So
the rest of that season, I believe, and then came back with Tampa Bay, which is just crazy. But a couple crazy stats here with Brady. 49th regular season winning drive in his career. I mean, that's just
Jesus.
That's insanity.
I mean, I expect anything from Tom Brady.
And also his 100th 300-yard plus game. By the way, tying Drew Brees, which all of Drew Brees' records that he set are going to be broken by Tom Brady.
Yeah.
If not this season, then in the next couple seasons, because Brady's not going to retire anytime soon.
I think Brady's got like this season and next season left, because I think he's only going to play until he's 45.
Yeah. You never know, though.
You don't know, but I mean, from
the
all
league,
accounts,
the league
that's what
would
it's going to
hate
be.
that.
45.
Can you imagine a 50-year-old quarterback still playing?
I mean, if anybody could, it would be Tom Brady.
Yeah. That's really all I have to say. I mean, Tampa's defense struggled more than I thought they would, but again, it is the first game of the season and literally the first, NFL game, regular season game. You missed a week of preseason, so there was rust in all of these games, and I think we saw it a little bit in this game. Not much on the offensive side of the ball at all. I mean, both these teams were about as good as you could ask. So that's really all I have. This was just a really, really fun game, a great game to kick off the season. A lot of people were picking the Cowboys to get blown out. I didn't really think that was going to happen. I thought it was going to be closer than that.
I thought we were going to lose by at least 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and it was just a really, really fun game. And yeah, Dallas is going to be tough this year, man. If they can, again, health is a thing that that Dallas especially knows better than any team, because they went through such a hard time last year with so many injuries.
Yeah, and
if they can stay healthy, man.
Yeah, and obviously we just got the news on that DeMarcus Lawrence is out for indefinitely because he just broke his foot. So
right,
you're right. Like if the Dallas can find a way to stay healthy and keep these guys from getting suspended, i.e., our right tackle, we'll be fine. But another thing that I want to say is, we won the turnover margin in this game by 3. I think it was 4 turnovers, 2 fumbles for Dallas, putting the 2 interceptions, and then the 1 interception for Tampa Bay. Normally you win like 92% of those games.
Right.
You only lose you only have about an 8% chance of winning a game if you have a turnover margin of 3. So the fact that Tampa Bay still won the game, and also the fact that Dallas, despite all those turnovers, didn't get a single sack on Tom Brady.
I was going to say that.
That kind of worries me. That kind of worries me that, we can get 4 turnovers, but we can't reach Tom Brady. We can't reach the quarterback, and then we still lose. That's a little concerning to me. But ultimately, like I said, you still leave more optimistic out of that game that this team is going to at least be able to keep up in a shootout, and hopefully the defense can get at least the stop to help you win the game.
Right, and especially when you're playing Tampa Bay, which is the best of the best in the NFC. I mean, I think that tells a lot more about where the Cowboys are right now. as far as, there was a lot of expectations coming into this game, like you mentioned, Carlos, not only about Dak, but I think just the team in general and how would they rebound from a pretty tough season last year. And I think their offense was just, they were extremely impressive. And honestly, the defense didn't play too bad. If you think about just this game in general, but yeah, it's just tough when you have that last second drive, you have to stop Brady on, because it's just the statistics are against you, man. And the football gods as well. It's Tom Brady. So that's really it.
One last thing before we move on. Did we all think that was a push off on that last big catch on that drive?
Man. That was tough. I looked and I saw and I thought it was a push off.
I thought it was a push off too, but
I saw some extension.
I didn't think it was egregious enough to call it in that situation.
Yeah. I agree with that.
It was slight to me, but yeah, I don't think it was. It wasn't an obvious penalty, I don't think either. It's one of those, it was really a 50-50 type of situation there. And, 9 times out of 10, the refs aren't going to call that in that situation when, you're coming down to a huge play like that at the end of the game.
Yep.
So that they're going to go with their gut in that situation, and they're not going to throw the flag. So what a fun game, man. It's just
it feels like that game really set the tone, because then we had, for every single, because Thursday, obviously that's the only game. It was a great game. Obviously, the Sunday game was probably the Chiefs and the Browns game. That was a great game. And then Monday night was wild. Sorry, Dan, but it was wild.
It was wild,
but it was still a great game to watch. It feels like it. I hope that has really set the tone for this season, and also just having fans back has really added to the experience.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Seeing SoFi open back up, Michael and Bruce Buffer. Nothing's better than that.
Nothing.
Michael and Bruce Buffer
I can name a few
doing
things that are better than that.
Yeah, but still in that current moment, But let's move on. We'll have our co-host and lead contributor, Dan Demski, set the scene for our next game, the Chargers versus the Washington football team.
Oh, why can't you do it yourself?
No, we'll get to me. I'm just taking turns here.
Okay.
Well, this was a pretty fun game too, to be honest.
It was.
Washington, I think my expectation for them in this game was it was not going to go well. Especially I thought their offense would struggle, which actually both offenses kind of struggled a little bit, at least to find the end zone. The Chargers, Justin Herbert threw for 337 yards against this defense, which is just mind-boggling, but only found the end zone one time. I think the Chargers, this really goes both ways, but I think for the Chargers, what their problem was in this game is they just couldn't close out and finish on these important drives. And you got to credit Washington's defense for doing a good job of taking care of things in that respect. Obviously 20-16 win for the Chargers. It wasn't perfect. But this was a tough game for Washington. And I think again, it showed, just how good this Washington team could be on defense when it comes to, well, maybe not in the secondary, giving up passing yards, but
I don't know, man. That defense was looking a little rough.
Well,
Were we watching the same game? Because that secondary got torn to shreds by Justin Herbert.
They gave up 2 touchdowns the entire
shreds.
game against that's my point. Yes, I understand. He shredded them through the air.
Are you just trying to butter me up, Dan? Make me feel better about myself? Is that it?
No.
Okay. Good.
I'm not. I'm definitely not trying to butter you up. Trust me. There's been many times where I've crapped on your team, especially in our group chat.
Oh,
so that's trust me, that's not an issue at all. If I wanted to crap on your team, I could do it. And you can crap on my team because they weren't very good either. But
we'll get to them soon enough.
It was also, the Chargers turned it over twice as well, and so I think that was key to keeping this game close as well. Honestly, Washington's offense,
oh my God,
they just couldn't they couldn't really do anything, to be honest. I mean, Heineke had some nice plays. He had a touchdown pass. They only scored 1 touchdown on offense, and that's really the story for their offense. I mean, they just kind of were extremely rusty. And this was a game too where both teams kind of started slow in the first half, and the halftime was like, thank God, because it was kind of brutal to a certain extent. Especially if you're a fan of points. So, I think that's how I'd set the scene. I think it was more of a defensive battle, even though Washington's defense on paper really did get shredded badly when you give up 337 passing yards. But they kept them out of the end zone pretty well. And Washington's offense, I think there's a lot of concern there, to be honest, going forward.
Especially after losing Fitzpatrick to that hip injury. Dislocated hip is basically what it is.
I think Heineke's a better option at this point.
He looks sharper for sure.
I really do. Yeah, he gives
but
them more
Heineke
of a
has
spark,
his injury problems too.
Yeah, and he's mobile. Like Fitzpatrick is not a guy who's gonna be able to get outside of the pocket and run the ball. And this offensive line was, not great. Let's be honest, they weren't great in this game. And constantly the Chargers were getting pressure, play after play after play. I don't know how many hurries they had, but it was a decent amount. So this was a game where I'd say the rust was on display for both teams. Justin Herbert, 337 yards. The Chargers should have won this game by 2 or 3 scores at least. Again, it's just a matter of sometimes, the rust shows, and I think this game was an example of that on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. All right. So my thoughts on this, I was just taking time to gather exactly how I was going to get through this game. So, is there any other way to describe? I don't think what has happened to the Washington football team will ever happen to another organization. Like the amount of terrible luck we have with quarterbacks. Heineke's coming out on Thursday night. I don't know about that. And he's going to be the 32nd starting quarterback since 92.
Cleveland? How many starting quarterbacks did they get to before they got to Baker Mayfield?
Since 99, they've had at least 30, if not more, starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, so don't be like a quarterback thing.
Well, listen, if fans were like, oh, Fitzmagic is gonna be there, gonna light it up, and he just goes out
years old.
Yeah, I know. And he goes out
you
with
were optimistic about him though.
At times, but
I told you that was a mistake to trust in that guy. I told you guys to draft a quarterback.
Well,
and of course, then you're like, no, they're not ready to develop a young quarterback.
Oh yeah, he yelled at us. Remember this?
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like draft a quarterback.
Come on. Well, so
I didn't think Fitzpatrick was gonna start.
What? Really?
Yeah, I thought Kyle Allen was gonna start.
No, there was no way.
That's even more of a joke.
Fitzpatrick.
Okay.
And Taylor Heineke.
Okay, this isn't the point here. The point is,
it kind of is the point, but go on.
The point is, Ryan Fitzpatrick went out with a hip injury, and
hip hooray. Sorry. I saw a moment and I had to do it.
Oh, well,
it's a really dumb joke.
Dad. Well timed.
Thank you.
Well timed.
I'll drink water to that.
Yeah. Okay.
I tip my cap to you, sir. I tip my cap to you.
Obviously, I hope Ryan Fitzpatrick is all right. But what I've seen in this game, the offensive production was not well when Ryan Fitzpatrick was in the game. But when Heineke came in, it seemed to pick up a little bit. But still, there was some rust. Like you said, Dan, the O-line just wasn't there. It really wasn't. And that has been a concern. I watched some of the preseason games, and I gathered Washington needs to work on their O-line. And you look at the defense, they just got ripped to shreds, man. I mean, Justin Herbert, you look at him, if he keeps performing the way he does and gets better and better, he might be in the MVP conversation. And that might be a stretch, but still, I think Herbert has that capability. And I knew this wasn't going to be an easy matchup. Being a fan of the Washington football team, this was not going to be an easy matchup. And looking at this from all angles, you're going to have to play smart, physical football in order to beat this Chargers team. And this Washington football team did not. And I mean, people are already talking about Thursday's game against New York, a division rival. Is this a must win? And I'll get to that in a moment. But
I mean, you guys should realistically win that game. The Giants are trash.
They're really bad.
They're really bad.
Okay, so I feel like Washington's defense was very overhyped because you have Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, all those names up on the line and so on and so forth. Landon Collins coming back healthy. Like, oh, our defense is going to rip them to shreds. We're going to win by 3 touchdowns. They were overhyped and they did not live up to all that overhype. They just did not look good, period. I didn't see.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit. It's only week 1, so let's not overreact here and say that they're overhyped. I just feel like it's week 1. They're just not, maybe they're not in the same shape that they were towards the end of last season.
And also the Chargers offensive line is pretty solid. I mean,
yeah, I agree with that.
They've revamped that offensive line.
And they really did a fantastic job of going against, especially Chase Young. Yeah, those guys really, Montez Sweat did have a sack, but really other than that, they didn't really do much.
Yeah.
They didn't really get much pressure at all. They didn't hurry him at all. And that's why he threw for 300, almost 350 yards, because he had so much time to throw most of the time.
And you hear Ron Rivera's press conference. I caught some of it, and he said they were rotating guys in and out on defense. And I mean, some people were concerned about that. I didn't really notice it, but
it's fatigue or what? Or what was his reasoning behind that?
It was probably for that. Maybe they're just not in. They're not necessarily
for different packages. He said.
Okay, well that's normal.
Yeah,
I think.
I don't see why anybody would be concerned about that.
I don't know.
Think about it. Well, for example, Dallas during their game, they were rotating the linebackers. It was Micah Parsons and I can't remember who else. And then it'd be Jalen Smith and what's his name? Van Der Esch.
Yeah, but I wasn't saying that was a concern. Some people were saying that was a concern, but I don't think so. And I think it keeps the defense sharp. But any way you look at this, the defense just did not play well. And my next point here, Antonio Gibson. I mean,
brutal.
You throw a ball straight at Gibson and he didn't catch it. I mean, yeah, he had easy catches that he should have made that he didn't, and lost the football right after that interception. That was very costly. You keep that football, there's a chance Washington might march down and score and retake the lead. Obviously, you have Dustin Hopkins missing that 51-yard field goal. I wasn't that concerned because I wasn't super mad because he made his other shorter field goals, but still, that's 3 points left off the board. My next thing people are talking about, is this a must win for the Washington football team? And hear me out here, guys. This is a must win for the Washington football team, because if they cannot get a number on Daniel Jones, they have lost to the Giants 5 straight times. 4 or 5 straight times. And they just don't have a number on Daniel Jones yet. This is a short week, short turnaround, a Thursday night matchup against the New York Giants. And if Washington...
Hold on. Does that concern you about the short turnaround? Because I know I'm hearing a lot of, well, I mean, not from like the team itself, but I'm hearing like from like the fan bases that like they're concerned about the short turnaround.
I am too. That's why I'm saying this is a must win.
It's always a concern, yeah.
Because if they don't prepare well enough to go in and beat New York in their home stadium, then after that, you're going straight to Buffalo, which, I mean...
You can't mark that down as a loss because we don't know, because they didn't look too great. I mean, Josh Allen did not look that great against
I'm marking
Pittsburgh.
it a loss. For the time
some
being.
optimism, dude. Come on, dude. What are we doing?
Oh, okay. I'll turn it around. The
Have
Washington.
a little optimism here, dude.
Okay,
It's
I'm
only week
optimistic.
one. It's not the end of the world.
I'm optimistic the Washington football team's going to win the Super Bowl. No, yeah.
Let's taper down our expectations too much. If Dallas isn't going to win the Super Bowl, then Washington's certainly not going to win the Super Bowl.
But listen. If they don't win this game against New York, you're going into Buffalo. That's not going to be an easy task. No matter any way you look at it, then you're at the Falcons, which is probably going to be a confidence booster win. Then the Saints come to FedEx. Mm-hmm. Not to mention you have Tampa Bay coming off a bye, Kansas City coming off a bye in this week's mixed in, and the Packers too. I mean, week one still, but still, it's going to be a rocky road if this Washington football team falls to 0-2. So that's my concern. I think it's a must win to boost their confidence, but still, week one, it's a long season, but I think it's going to be a tough season for the Washington football team.
Well, we kind of figured. I mean, we knew that the thing that was going to hold this team back was probably going to be the offense, because they don't have a running game. We said it at the end of last season. The issue with Washington was they didn't have a running game. And you got to also think about, you got to put this in perspective. When it comes to the quarterback position, last season, Washington went, 2-8 without Alex Smith. And Alex Smith wasn't obviously with the busted leg and all that. Great story. And comeback player of the year. Obviously he's retired. Now now he's, working for ESPN. But I mean, you got to put that into perspective too. The quarterback situation has been tumultuous there in Washington, because obviously they were banking on Dwayne Haskins, your favorite quarterback. We won't discuss.
No,
it still is.
Not again.
It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. But obviously they were banking on him to be the guy. He ended up not being the guy. He ended up being immature, not ready for that type of position. Again, we've discussed that at length. Obviously, Kyle Allen was in Carolina with
Ron
Rivera. God, his name just like completely slipped my mind for some reason. I was like, what the hell is his name? With Ron Rivera. So he has some comfort with him, but I don't think he's good enough to be the starter. And obviously, Taylor Heineke had the great game against Tampa Bay. He comes into this game. He looked sharp coming out, and the offense did pick up. But then in the fourth quarter, they just completely died. I don't know what defensively they were doing on, I was about to call them San Diego, on LA. But, they stuffed them out. And then obviously, Ryan Fitzpatrick breaks his hip, or no, he didn't break his hip. He dislocated his hip. And and again, I'll reiterate the point. You guys should have drafted a quarterback. This was a rich quarterback draft class in this past draft. And in the second, obviously in the second round, I told you guys should have drafted Kyle Trask, because I feel like he would have been a perfect option for this. And the fact that Washington banked on a quarterback who's been a journeyman and didn't necessarily, again, like I said, Washington's not going to get a Peyton Manning type free agent. Mm-hmm. They're just not going to do that. Oh,
they tried. They did try to get Peyton Manning, but
they did try. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
why would you want to go there?
The stadium sucks.
Do you think Washington could ever land a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady
if they had two or three decent players on offense? Yes.
No.
Yes. Yes. Think about it. Was Tampa Bay really a top-notch destination before Brady got there? No. Nobody was clamoring to go play for Tampa. Everybody went to Tampa because Tom went there. And Tom went there because I really don't know why Tom went there. I think it's just because it was Florida.
Yeah, they had several pieces, and then of course,
but they had pieces ready for him, to go at wide receiver that he wouldn't have had.
And it was perfect Gronk, the timing with Gronk too, to come out of retirement.
So basically, if Washington would have these certain pieces, now Terry McLaurin he's going to be a good wide receiver.
Guy's a stud.
He's going to be a good wide receiver. Logan Thomas didn't necessarily have the best game, but he's still a solid
be
tight
good.
end.
Mm-hmm.
Well, another point I forgot to mention, Terry went without a target for the first half. So, like, really?
Again, that's on your quarterback.
They also
That's what I'm saying.
They also didn't really. They didn't throw it a whole lot in general in this game.
Logan
to be
Thomas
honest.
didn't get a target till like the start of the second quarter.
When did Fitzpatrick get hurt? Second quarter?
I believe so.
I mean, he threw it 6 total
Was it
times.
after halftime? I think it was after halftime.
Might have been.
I don't know.
I honestly can't remember.
I don't know,
Not that
but
it-
I mean, the wide receivers weren't target. I mean,
But again, that's also
just-
because Fitzpatrick wasn't given enough time to
Mhm.
throw it. I mean, the dude was under.
Exactly.
I mean,
that could
Fitzpatrick's
be
not
why
mobile.
too. But still, I was surprised he didn't start throwing to Terry just to start off the game and just keep firing at Terry, Logan Thomas, Diami.
Maybe they were
Brown.
trying to get the running game going. I don't know. I mean, like we said at the end of the season last year, after Washington was knocked out of the playoffs, I remember we specifically had this conversation. Washington needs to figure out their running game because their running game was not enough. And if they would have had a running game, they would have won a lot more last year. And they might have beaten the Buccaneers because they had the Buccaneers in a close game. We've seen what this Washington team can be. You know, we see the potential. And I think that's why maybe a lot of these Washington fans are disappointed at the performance because we've seen how dominant this defense can be. Now, albeit they were dominant against some teams that, you know, weren't necessarily the best down the stretch, but I mean, they still pushed Tampa Bay to, you know, the limit. It's the running game. It's the quarterback. They need to make some, they need to fix some things on the offensive line. But I mean, the defense, I think, is where people need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit and let the season progress to see if they live up to the hype or not.
I think that's true in general with all these teams. Is like we talked a little bit about the Bills. I know we're gonna mention them later, but like pump the brakes a little bit. Like the season's not over. Like, yes, they were rusty. Yes, they didn't look great. Same thing with Washington. Same thing with a lot of teams. But look, Dallas lost. Washington lost. The Eagles won, which was a little surprising. The Giants aren't going to be any competition.
NFC North lost.
Yeah. You know, the Giants aren't going to be any competition. So that division's pretty much wide open, just like it was last season. So, I mean, pump the brakes a little bit on the Washington's not going to, I don't know what you think the record's going to be now, but
I mean,
depends on if they lose.
I could be overreacting.
You're definitely overreacting.
But still,
definitely overreacting.
I mean, following this team from the DMV, I feel like that if they don't win on Thursday, they're just digging themselves a deeper hole and they might not be able to get out of it.
Okay, but they'll only be one game behind everybody else, and they still have to play the rest of the NFC East. I mean, let's pump the brakes again. Yes, I mean, chances are they're probably going to lose to Kansas City. They're probably going to lose to Tampa Bay. That's 2 more losses. That's 4 losses so far in the season. You still got 2 games against the Eagles. You got 2 games against the Cowboys, which of course I'm thinking you're not going to win.
Yeah, but, no, we're definitely not going to win against.
Who knows? I mean, we thought that last year, and then obviously Dak gets hurt. And then obviously, Alex Smith has the game of his life on the first game, which was Thanksgiving? Was that the Thanksgiving game last year? Yes. So, again, pump the brakes. Like, we still got 16 more games to go. It's not over. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Amen to that. All right, we'll take a quick break. Much more to come here on the Week 1 podcast, the Kirby on Sports podcast. We'll catch you right on the other side. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you about Regroup Building Services. If you're looking to get your home remodeled, any part of your home, bathroom, kitchen, want to get a deck built, anything like that, Regroup Building Services can just about do everything. And take it from me, because they came in and they remodeled my family's kitchen, and they do a great job. So if you're looking for any sort of home remodeling needs, deck work done, anything of that nature, reach out to my guy Sean Hibbard over at Regroup Building Services today. You can check them out on their website, www.regroupbuildingservices.com, where they do the honeydews that your honey don't. Make sure you tell them Josh sent you. For sports fans living in condominium and homeowners associations, as well as business professionals, when you need a reserve study, PM Plus Reserves has been in business since 1990. Their studies are accurate and easy to understand. Check them out when your association needs a study. www.pmplusreserves.com. You can also contact them at 703-803-8436. Once again, www.pmplusreserves.com. All right, welcome back. Week 1 here on the Kirby on Sports podcast. Let's talk about the next game, a very exciting matchup, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cleveland Browns. The Chiefs won this game 33-29, and boy, I'll tell you, the Browns, for the most part of this game, looked pretty impressive. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was very surprised. I thought Odell Beckham was going to play, but I guess his injury as Carlos is getting the Chiefs.
Here it comes.
But Odell Beckham, I mean,
the
even
home of the Chiefs.
There it
okay.
is.
I just woke up my dog, Chief. Sorry.
So, anyways, I mean, the Browns, the way they played, even though the Chiefs came back, which was very impressive, but I was not surprised being Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But this Browns team, I wouldn't be surprised if they run it deep.
Yeah,
That's how good they look.
We had him as a Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah, this is pretty much an AFC Championship game preview in my mind, or one we could definitely see. Outside of Kansas City, I think there's several teams that have a shot at the AFC Championship game, and the Browns, I think, proved that they're definitely right in that conversation. I think a lot of people kind of thought that anyway. The thing about the Browns was, Baker Mayfield didn't throw a single touchdown pass, which I had to double check to make sure
Wait,
that was
seriously?
the case. Yeah,
He did.
Why
He
does it
threw
feel like he
one
did?
interception.
he did. He threw a pick and that was it. Yeah,
Really?
he didn't throw a single touchdown pass. It was Chubb had 2 rushing touchdowns,
Hunt.
and so that was
Chubb with 2, Hunt with 1,
Mhm.
Landry with 1.
Yeah, Landry ran in. That's
I-
right.
Yeah, Carlos, you were intensely watching this game. I gotta ask.
You goddamn right I was.
Yeah, were you worried when you saw the Browns running the score up on the Chiefs earlier? Did you think the Chiefs had this under control and that they were going to come back and retake the lead, ultimately winning this game?
No, I actually thought that the Browns were going to ultimately win the game at halftime. Because I thought Kansas City looked very lethargic.
They did.
especially defensively. Obviously Tyrann Mathieu was taken off the COVID list or the protocols, whatever, on Sunday in the morning, but he wasn't activated, so he was on the sidelines. Obviously, the Odell news was news because I thought he was going to play too. And then when the game started, they showed him that he was in street clothes. And basically, what happened was, it hasn't been a year since he tore his ACL, so he's still technically recovering. That's typically an injury that takes a year to recover from. So with that being, he went out during pregame warm-ups, tried to warm up. The trainers didn't like what they saw. Odell didn't like how it felt, so they just said no. But yeah, no, I didn't think that the Chiefs looked that great in the first half.
Yeah.
I thought Baker was throwing all over them. I didn't think the secondary looked good. But I honestly attribute this win mostly to the fact that Kansas City was at home and they had that home field advantage, because that crowd really gave them energy in the second half. If this game was played in Cleveland and it went the same way, there's no way Kansas City would have won that game. But also Patrick Mahomes doing Patrick Mahomes shit, man. I mean, he literally just threw. I mean, that was the turning point in the game, was that long pass, that 75-yard touchdown catch, or pass to Tyreek Hill, where where Patrick Mahomes literally says he just saw Tyreek's hands out there and he just threw it and hoped to God that Tyreek was going to catch it.
And then he jumps up, screams, and the whole fan base erupts.
I feel like that was where
electric.
the fans really started getting into the game.
That was very electric, and that's why we needed fans back in the stands. And
well, it shows home field advantage is going to be a big thing this year, because it's going to be a big thing for Seattle once Seattle starts playing at home again. It's going to be a big thing when New Orleans gets back into the Superdome. It's going to be obviously it's a big factor with the Chiefs. I mean, yeah, I really do attribute this win a lot to the fact that the Chiefs were at home and they had home field advantage.
Yeah, that's well said. You know, the thing about the Browns is just how long they led in this game. I mean, they led 22-10 at halftime, like you mentioned, Carlos, the slow start with Kansas City. And then they led 29-20 with 10:24 left in regulation. Then they give up a 75-yard touchdown to Hill. And of course, that terrible botched punt attempt. And the punter, I don't know what he was doing. He ran around, lost a bunch of yards. And then Kansas City had the ball in the red zone. So that was really the point in the game when I was like, all right, this game's over. I mean, because Kansas City.
At that point, the momentum had
right.
You know, the pendulum had swung.
And all they needed was a touchdown, and you know they had the lead, and they had the lead. So and they were in the red zone. So you can't make those kind of mistakes against a team like Kansas City. And so the Browns, you know, they just didn't play a full 4-quarter game. That's kind of what my summary was of this. You know, they played great for about 3.5 quarters, but when you play the upper echelon of teams in the league, like Kansas City, like Tampa Bay, who we already talked about, you know, you have to be on your A game from start to finish, man. From the first kick to the final whistle, you just have to be on it. And the Browns just weren't. Kansas City took advantage of that. And like you said, Mahomes doing Mahomes things. Like, nothing surprises me anymore with what Mahomes is able to do. When the game was 29-20, I just kind of had a feeling that, you know, we've seen Kansas City come back so many times, both in the regular season and especially in the playoffs. The last 3 years, they've obviously overcome big. Yeah, the Houston one was still just mind-boggling. I don't even think you could probably do that in Madden. But you know, it is what
maybe
it is.
On rookie mode, but
maybe. But it's just Mahomes. I mean, 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. Well, I mean, what else can you say?
I mean, he was
Tyreek Hill, almost 200 yards receiving and a touchdown. They are just. I pretty much wrote in here like they're impossible to beat in most circumstances. Like if you beat Kansas City, you've either caught them on a really bad night or you've played a perfect football game. That's really the only way you're going to be able to beat them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the big motivation this season for the Chiefs is because they feel like they were embarrassed in the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, we all know what the real thing was. Their line was decimated. So Patrick Mahomes was running for his life, and Patrick Mahomes feels like he had a bad performance that game. He said, I think he feels like he had a bad performance that game, but in my opinion, it was just the team overall had a bad performance, and he was doing everything he could. I mean, goddamn, he's making a pass while he's, completely parallel to the ground.
That's stuff you won't see any other quarterback.
I mean, think about how many great throws he had in this. He had so many sidearm passes. I mean, it's Patrick incredible. Mahomes is so special, and I'm always in awe every time. And that's why I love watching the Chiefs, because I like watching. I love quarterbacks. I love watching quarterbacks play. And Patrick Mahomes just plays like he's a video game. He's a goddamn alien. Like he's not from this planet. He really isn't.
And by the way, Carlos, that line you talked about that Mahomes had in the Super Bowl, Lamar Jackson has to deal with that every week. So yeah. We'll get to that game.
Fair
I know,
enough, but I mean,
yeah, it's tough sledding.
I got some praise coming Lamar Jackson's way. I do have some praise coming his way.
That's good.
So
Kansas City's just Kansas City, man. I mean, they are very difficult to beat. Like I said, you have to either catch them
of the creme.
Yep, creme de la creme. That's it, man. They really are. I mean, you literally have to play a perfect football game, and the Browns almost did, but they botched. God, that punt was just brutal. that's when you just knew that the game was over. I mean, the momentum was fully on Kansas City's side, and they were already in the red zone. You set them up right there. So that's just this was a fun game as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of fun games this weekend. This one is right up there with Dallas, Tampa Bay. I think this one might even be better just because.
Yeah. I think this was the marquee matchup for
Right.
Sunday. I wish it was Sunday Night Football instead of, the CBS game.
Yeah,
But I mean, goddamn, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo make it fun too.
they're fantastic, man. I think that's all I have. I mean, I think we've
that's
covered
all
it
I
pretty
have
well.
too.
Yeah, that's all I have.
All right. So with that, let's move on to the last and final game we will recap in depth. It was a Monday night thriller. I mean, I didn't stay up for the whole game, but
I didn't either.
From what I saw, it was a very entertaining ball game. I know obviously Dan wouldn't think so because he is a supporter of the Baltimore
Dan
Ravens.
muted the group chat because he didn't want to see what you were saying, Kirby. I mean, I was trying to watch the game.
Listen,
I'm trying
only
to watch
said
the game
one
too, Kirby,
thing.
and you're just blowing up the phone.
So I only said
And
one thing, and Dan was like, "I don't need a play-by-play." I'm like,
I don't. And also I have YouTube.
well,
TV,
you know
so I'm
why I
behind
said
anyone.
that, right?
Yeah, he is like behind like a solid like 2 seconds.
No, but it was funny.
Probably
and
more,
I've
honestly.
I've
What's that?
seen this with a bunch of other teams. They throw in their backup quarterbacks to do packages, and I'm like, wait, why are the Raiders putting Mariota in? And he rushed for
Runs for 35 yards.
And
I
that
was like,
it.
what
And
the
then now he's
heck?
hurt.
I was like,
I was
Carr's
like-
hurt? What happened?
When they put him in the game, I'm like, I know they're gonna do a read option. He's either gonna he's probably gonna run the ball. And apparently the Ravens had no idea, and they just that was a key play, but that was in the first half. I thought the first half was pretty well played by the Ravens, and really Derek Carr struggled really in the first half of this game, which the Ravens defense was solid. I mean, literally no receivers open. They didn't really get much pressure at all in the entire game, I don't think, but they had good coverage in the first half, and I was very impressed with how it went, to be honest, on both sides of the ball. But yeah, go ahead and say what you're going to say real fast.
I forgot to set the scene. The Raiders beat
set the scene.
the Ravens 33-27 in overtime. This was the debut of Peyton and Eli's broadcast on
Fantastic.
ESPN2.
It was fantastic.
Oh
good.
my!
It was so great. I will
Fire
only
alarm
be
and all.
watching. They're only doing 10 of those this season. They're
Only
doing
10?
it this Monday for Packers Lions. I think they're going to take some weeks off where they're not going to do it. But every time they're doing it, that's the feed I'm watching. I'm not watching the regular feed. They need to get Peyton into the actual booth, though, because he would be fantastic as a color commentator.
Yeah, he
Oh,
would
yeah,
be
no
he
doubt.
would be fantastic for
No
sure.
doubt.
He would be better than Tony Romo. He would outshine Tony. Tony
Ooh,
Romo.
that's-
Who's Tony
That's
Romo?
tough, man. And also, Tony Romo's been doing it for 3 years now?
Yeah,
4
but
years.
come
That's
on,
tough,
dude. Peyton
man.
Manning was fantastic. I want him in the booth so bad.
Yeah, Eli's extremely awkward. A lot of times, like he just kind of sits there and then he'll make a comment now and then. He's definitely shy. He's definitely camera shy. I noticed that immediately. I was like, damn, this guy is really uncomfortable. And Peyton just loves spotlight. Like, Peyton, the guy who was like has one of the funniest SNL NFL sketches ever with the United Way thing. If you don't know what we're talking about, go look that up. That shit's hilarious.
Yep.
But yeah, they were very entertaining, I thought, for sure.
The John
And that's
Gruden skit with where like he's playing John Gruden and then Eli's playing Derek Carr and then the helmet, the Baltimore Ravens helmet not fitting
his
on
big
him.
head. Oh my
and then
gosh.
Eli making the joke about it. It's
And
fantastic.
Charles Barkley.
I mean, whatever. Ray Lewis
Oh,
coming
wow.
on and like, him and Eli talking about how, the whole Mike linebacker type story where Eli points him out as the Mike and he's like, they're having a conversation. Like Ray's like, I'm not the Mike. Are you the Mike? I'm not the Mike. It's fantastic. Just the way they broke
So
down the
great.
game.
In the game where he had 0.0
That was same game. Same game. Same
QBR.
game. Same game.
I know. A 0.0 QBR.
That's rough.
Brutal.
I think that was when the fire alarm was going off at the same time.
Oh,
See,
yeah, that fire alarm
there was
went off,
something in it
too.
for everyone. You know
I
what
was
I mean?
like, what
it was
the
great,
heck?
dude. I loved
So
it.
funny.
Shout out to ESPN for putting that together. I just wish they were getting an alternative feed to the game where they didn't have to go on commercial the same time that the regular feed, like the main feed, was going on commercial. Because every time the normal ESPN feed would go on commercial for the game,
just
that's
cut
when they would, and it just
Right.
kind of ruined the flow of the conversation. But that's stuff that I think they're gonna fix up, because like there was times Ray Lewis was telling the story and they would cut him off.
Yeah. That was I agree, Carlos. I don't know if they had producers or something telling them when they were going to break. It didn't seem like it. It seemed like a lot of times they were caught off guard by it.
Sometimes it would come over on where you would hear the producer going, "All right, commercial 5, 4, 3, 2," and then they would go in a commercial.
That sucks though, like mid-story to have to be cut off like that. Because then how the hell are you going to remember when you come back like 3-4 minutes later?
Yeah, it was kind of annoying. But I mean, that's besides the point. Yes, that's probably the feed that I'll be watching every time they do that. Yes. But let's get back to the game here.
Okay. So I'd like to touch on the fact that I really did like how the Ravens had sort of a next man up mentality. They had Tyson Williams in at running back, 65 yards rushing, and then Latavius Murray, 28 yards rushing. Obviously, Lamar Jackson still great on his feet, but whoever thinks Lamar Jackson cannot throw a football, you're
Booger
wrong.
McFarland, fuck that guy.
That long pass he threw, I can't remember exactly the exact moment. I'm trying to remember. It was literally like a pass in the pocket too, and I was like, and someone put on Twitter, they're like, "Tell me Lamar can't throw," and it was a dime. So he played about as well as he could. I mean, honestly, the offensive line just got spanked. I mean, they just were bullied, especially Alejandro Villanueva. I mean, he got beat time after time after time, and that's why a lot of Lamar's throws were like off balance and on the run, and he didn't have a chance to always set his feet. And he also, I think, later in the game with all the pressure around him, he tended to run a little more, and that's what led to those couple fumbles at the end of the game. Towards the end of the game, the defense was great in the first half. I really can't explain what happened in the second half. I mean, Derek Carr, for some reason, he just flipped the switch and totally shredded their secondary. I mean, Darren Waller, if there's one guy you're going to cover on this offense, it's got to be Darren Waller. Like
100%.
He totally dominated their defense. And they honestly, like, Carr was able to spread the ball around to pretty much, it seemed like every receiver had a catch for him, and the Ravens just had no answer. I mean, obviously he finished with 435 yards. I mean, this is supposed to be secondary that, even though they lost Marcus Peters to a torn ACL, they're supposed to be pretty deep. They're really deep in that area. And so I thought they were going to step up and play pretty well, even without Marcus Peters. But in the second half, it was just like a different defense altogether, in my opinion. Also, the Raiders, they got pressure on Lamar, and they weren't even blitzing. Like, they had 3 or 4 guys on the line of scrimmage and no problems getting pressure on Lamar. So I think that was probably the biggest thing that led to those two fumbles that Lamar had, especially, which, obviously were his fault. He fumbled the ball. The one was kind of a blindside hit. So, I mean, there's not much you can do about that. But also the Ravens gave up the lead 3 separate times in the fourth quarter. The ending of this game was about as stressful as a game as I've seen in a long time.
I can imagine you probably.
I'm so glad that was your team and not mine, because I would have freaking died.
My heart was like, I can't take this every week, dude. Crazy.
When I saw the score the next morning, I was like, I'm not gonna text Dan today. I'm not gonna text Dan.
Dan gave his thoughts immediately after.
I was
like, I'm not even gonna touch this. I'm just gonna leave this alone. Yeah. I'm just gonna let Dan wallow in his suffering.
Yes.
And let him process it. Let me go.
That was the best way to do that, Carlos. That really was. Yeah. I was very angry. I was very angry at how this game ended.
I mean, oh my God, what? Oh man,
because it goes from, they have a 33-yard, it looked like a touchdown pass to Brian Edwards on the first possession of overtime. Turns out he was down at the 1. Then the very next play, the ball gets deflected into the air and intercepted. So I'm like, great, we only need to go 25-30 yards for Justin Tucker. And then like 3 plays later, he fumbled the ball and they were able to win.
Overtime
on a
is
touchdown
especially-
pass too, of all things. Like the defense was exhausted by then. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they've been on the field for so long, and you could see on that particular play, like, first of all, Carr had all day to throw. He just stands there. Then he loads up and just lobs the ball. And it was probably the easiest touchdown they're going to score all season.
Absolutely.
It was a game in which I was very upset. Obviously, I think you guys sensed that, and you stayed away from me, which was a good idea.
I mean, you sent that message at 11:41 at night, and you just said Ravens are an 8-9 team. Embarrassing.
It just, yeah.
What's the goddamn, Dad?
I think
don't
that's another pump the brakes moment, because I really feel like the Ravens are going to do better. This was just
they better, because they have Kansas City next week, so they're going to have to play a lot better.
I mean, who knows? Maybe
maybe another pump the
0-2
brakes
week.
moment.
That's true.
All our
Hashtag
teams might
pump
be
the
0-2
brakes.
next week.
If the Ravens lose, I'm not going to be upset. I'm expecting it. Obviously, it's Kansas City, and they're Kansas City.
Is
And
that
the Ravens play
just
poorly.
like
in
me?
Baltimore, right?
Yeah, it's in Baltimore, which
Full
I think.
stadium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like me, I expected Washington to lose as a fan, so I was prepared.
Well, this game was different. Like I thought that we had a pretty good shot to win.
Yeah, I thought
like
the Ravens
said,
had the best shot to win this game.
right. First half, I mean, up 14-10 at the half, I was very happy about that. But I don't know something just changed. I mean, Derek Carr all of a sudden became like a Hall of Famer in the second half and just totally dismantled this defense. And neither team really. Also, the Ravens also abandoned the run as well. I mean, I think Tyson Williams only had like 2 carries in the second half. I don't think Latavius Murray had any. And then I think Cannon had 1 carry, and then he was taken out of the game. So they had like 3 total carries in the second half. I mean, I talked about this last year after they lost in the playoffs. Similar situation here. Obviously, the Raiders aren't the same caliber of team that the Bills are, but they abandoned the run. I mean, I understand they have, Tyson Williams is a guy who was, he stood out in preseason, but let's face it. I mean, a lot of those guys end up on the practice squad who do those things. Obviously with their injury situation, he gets lifted to the first spot. That's stressful as hell. I can't imagine going through that, but I thought he played pretty well in the first half. He ripped off a 35-yard run, which I thought was impressive. And then in the second half, they just, it's almost like they feel like we have to prove that Lamar can do it on his own, sort of thing. I think that seems to be the mentality of the play calling at that point. So I think that's kind of what happened. And then you saw, all the pressure and Lamar make mistakes late in the game just because, he was literally running for his life for most of the game, but especially in the second half, it was crazy. And you got to give credit to the Raiders. I mean, they had a great adjustment in the second half. I mean, they turned it around completely, pretty much. They just this was their game. They wanted it more, and they showed it.
I think also being at home, like for the first time with fans in that stadium, because that's pretty much the first time they opened that stadium to fans. Obviously, they opened it last year, but this is the first time they've had a full capacity in that stadium. I think that really helped. Also, it's Vegas. It's dry air, it's desert air. So I think that also contributed to why the Ravens got fatigued. But I do want to say, I do want to give credit to Lamar Jackson, because his development as a passer as a pocket passer has really improved. I thought he made some great throws in this game. I think the thing though about Lamar Jackson is, obviously I compare him a lot with Patrick Mahomes sometimes, is, when Patrick Mahomes is evading the pressure in the pocket, it's very, I guess you could say, it feels controlled. Like he finds that lane and he just steps smooth through it. He's smooth with it. Whereas with Lamar Jackson, it's very chaotic. And sometimes that's to his detriment, because then he kind of gets a little loosey-goosey with the ball and has it out here and is running. And that's when they're just slapping it out of his hand. That's what the second fumble was.
Yeah.
And I mean, so he needs to, he fumbles the ball a lot. So he needs to definitely work on, protecting the ball and not obviously turning it over. like I said, his development, he's so good when he's on the run. He can juke the whole team, but he needs to learn that sometimes juking the whole team might not be is not the only option. Sometimes protect the ball, just take a slide, like you don't have to make the big runs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And his development as a passer, like I said, he's come a long way since when he stepped in and, for Joe Flacco, he's getting more crisp. He's still not necessarily, I don't think he still hasn't reached his final stage yet.
No.
Like he's still developing. He's still young too. So like we got a lot of time with Lamar
He's 24.
Jackson.
Yeah.
He's 24. He's won
24.
an MVP. I mean, he's got so much left, to do in the NFL. He just needs to learn to protect the ball more when he's on the run.
Yeah, and I'll say
I agree.
to the point about the fumbles, I mean, it does seem like he fumbles it a lot, but if you look at the numbers compared, like how many like average fumbles per, I forget what the number is. I saw it earlier, but like since he carries the ball so much, like he really doesn't fumble it that much. It just seems like it because it's always in the key moments. Like if you think about obviously late in this game and I believe against the Bills last year in the playoffs, he fumbled it late in the game, I believe. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, he has to protect the ball. He doesn't really tuck it that well sometimes, especially when he thinks there's no more, defensive players around him. I think he sort of tries to sense that. And I think that's when it gets a little dangerous, but I totally agree. And I totally also agree with his development as a passer. I mean, you just saw it in this game. He's not a guy that's going to go out there and throw it 50 times. He's not that way because he doesn't have to be.
Not yet, at least, but I think he has the potential to be.
Yeah, but again, he doesn't have to be. I mean, he ran it 12 times in this game, and he really, I mean, honestly, he usually runs it more than that. So, but yeah, I think the Ravens are still trying to figure out their offense with all these injuries, especially the running back situation. So maybe that's why they sort of abandoned the run. Lamar didn't have any interceptions which I think is huge. It shows his development as a passer. And, I think in general, Sammy Watkins is going to make a difference. He was their leading receiver. He missed 4 catches. I mean, they targeted him 8 times, only had 4 catches. So I think that's a concern. But again, when you have a new receiver on a team, especially a guy like Sammy Watkins, it takes time to build a rapport with your quarterback. That's just going to be how it is. I know I said 8 and 9. I think that's a little steep, but I do think it's going to be tough this year, especially in this division. I mean, we saw the way Cleveland played. We saw the way Pittsburgh won the game. Pittsburgh's game wasn't pretty, but they came back. Cleveland,
Pittsburgh still got offensive line issues. So
they do. No, they definitely do. And obviously, everybody picks Cleveland to win this division. I think that's still looking pretty good. I mean, they went right down to the wire with Kansas City, but anything can happen. It's the first week of the season. I know I was a little
you were emotional. That's all.
I was emotional. I was a little emotional. Yeah. And I had some time to think about it. And yeah, it'll take some time. I am concerned with the defense though. I think that is an area where, they pride themselves with their defense. I mean, they were a top 5 defense the last few years, maybe probably the last 3 or 4 years, at least as long as Lamar's been on this team, if not before. So, that's something that concerns me. They're going to need to make a lot of adjustments before this game against Kansas City, but got to credit the Raiders. Also, another thing with the Raiders, this seems to happen like the last couple seasons. They always start really well, like the first 4 or 5 games.
Yep.
Absolutely.
They go 4-1 or 5-0, whatever it is.
Crash at the end.
And they crash. Yeah. They have that mid-season crash and then they just fall off at the end. So, I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but it's something to keep in mind as the season goes on. Like it's normally what happens, but
Gentlemen, I must say, nonetheless, the week 1 started out with an amazing game, and I think it ended with a very entertaining game, nonetheless. Yeah, so
I totally agree.
Yeah, I think it was great. Once again, you're listening to the Kirby on Sports podcast. We'll take another quick break. When we come back, we will wrap things up with rapid fire in one more segment. Stay tuned. Is it finally time to upgrade your home's interior? How about with an authentic farm table made locally from recycled barnwood? Shenandoah Primitives, based right here in Winchester, Virginia, makes farm tables, benches, tables, coffee tables, and a long list of other items for your home decorating needs. At Shenandoah Primitives, function and style are combined for great furniture that will last generations. If you're interested in combining the industrial look of metal with wood, or considering something incredibly unique with a live edge, Shenandoah Primitives turns those ideas into reality. Thinking about a mirror, wine rack, or other accent piece for your home, Shenandoah Primitives can assist with that as well. As a local small business, Shenandoah Primitives is happy to work with each client for a custom design or schedule an appointment to come out and view current inventory. Local, high-quality, handmade items can be found at Shenandoah Primitives. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit us at www.shenandoahprimitives.com. Once again, that's www.shenandoahprimitives.com.
Hey, sports fans. Thank you for listening to and supporting the Kirby on Sports podcast with founder and host Josh Kirby, along with lead contributor Dan Demski. Like, subscribe, and give them a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcast from. My name is Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation. Our company helps leaders build engaged and productive teams. Exclusively for listeners of the Kirby on Sports podcast, you can take an opportunity to discover your primary communication style and learn more about effective communication with others. Text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free copy of the Working From Home Communication Assessment, where you'll learn your primary communication style, how to better communicate with others not like you, and tips on working remotely based on your personal communication style. 10 minutes, tons of resources. Learn about yourself and your team. Again, text Kirby to 757-903-0743 for your free assessment report today. I'm Dr. Dave Miles, founder of Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, where we help you and your team be more engaged and productive by understanding each other better. Back to you, Josh.
All right, we are back. I'm with Dan Demski and Carlos Martinez, the Swiss Army knife.
Said the title afterwards this time.
Yeah, well, I had to make sure I got it right. Gentlemen,
put some respect on my name.
Respect.
Please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, gentlemen, hear me out here. We're doing rapid fire. We're going to go through the rest of the games. I'm going to say the team name, the score. If you want to say anything about it, just one nugget. That's all. Not going into deep detail or anything. Just so
it's the last word.
The last
That's
word
right.
of the day.
That's right.
Absolutely. The Eagles and the Falcons, 32-6. The Eagles took this game. I thought the Falcons might come out and beat the Eagles because of all the, but Jalen Hurts looked pretty incredible.
I'll say Matt Ryan retire. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts looked good, but the craziest thing that I saw from this game is the fact that Devontae Smith's first NFL touchdown was in the same exact spot that he scored the touchdown in the national championship game.
Ooh.
Very impressive.
That's a good
Very
point.
impressive.
It was awesome.
The Steelers beating the Bills 23-16. Josh Allen did not look good. I thought the Steelers might not win this game. I thought they might be taking a step back, but they came up, and Mike Tomlin, you can write whatever stories you want, but Pittsburgh came and won.
Mike Tomlin will always keep this team in a winning position.
Yep, I was
Josh
just about
Allen
to say that.
definitely looked like the old Josh Allen, which is not a good thing. But I think it's only week one. He'll be all right. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think this game was rust central to me because both teams were kind of rusty, especially Pittsburgh there until the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter when they scored 23 points in the second half, which, they were
not good.
The way they started this game was rough. But yeah, the Pittsburgh second half comeback, and like Carlos said, Mike Tomlin, he's Mike Tomlin. I mean, he doesn't get enough credit for how great of a football coach he is, and he'll always have the Steelers ready to play.
Yep.
And come back in the second half.
Sam Darnold on a new squad, the Carolina Panthers, and Zach Wilson For the New York Jets, it was a close game, but Sam Darnold gets revenge over his former team.
Let's be honest. The coolest thing that came out of that game was the augmented reality Panther thing that they showed.
Yeah.
After that game. That was the coolest thing that came
That
out of
was
that.
cool.
The game itself was absolute trash. I still am concerned about, Wilson and how good he's going to be. They keep trying to make him the next Patrick Mahomes. He'll never be the next Patrick Mahomes.
No, and he won't be the next Patrick Mahomes on the Jets either. I mean, it's the Jets. They are a 2-win team this year, probably. This game was, I don't know. It's both teams trying to find their identity. I think this was an important game for Matt Rule to win. He really hasn't proven that he belongs as an NFL coach right now, at least in my opinion. And he's still got a lot of work to do to get there, but this is a step in the right direction, even if they did just beat the Jets.
Hey, a win is a win. So
that's right.
The Bengals over the Vikings 27-24 in overtime. Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase.
Well, I guess the cool stat is also that all the three big rookie wide receivers all scored. Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, and Devontae Smith.
Chase.
Here's
looks
the thing.
Good.
Here's the thing. They still messed up with the pick. Poor Joe Burrow was getting slaughtered back there the whole game. And the fact that they won in overtime shows how bad Minnesota is right now. And they do not look like a team. Kirk Cousins has I'm pretty sure Zimmer and Kirk Cousins are ready to break up.
They're gone.
Let me point out one thing.
Season.
Where would the Washington football team be if they kept Kirk Cousins?
Same spot, probably.
Well, I mean, I'll say Kirk Cousins is definitely a lot better than the quarterbacks you have on the roster. So, I mean, maybe you guys would still be in a playoff contention.
But if you had to pay him, you wouldn't be able to afford any other decent players too.
Yeah.
So you take that risk with the reward as well.
Yeah. I think ultimately Washington was better off moving on from him, but they need to figure out what the hell they're doing at quarterback.
I was just going to say, because I didn't get a chance to talk about this game, Josh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Asshole.
I was just going to say, it's just great to see Joe Burrow back out there. And even if he is still running for his life, trying not to get killed again.
They're going to fuck this kid up. They're going to fuck him up.
Big win for him in his young career, though, for sure.
Yep.
The 49ers over the Lions 41-33. Dan Campbell's Lions got knocked down, and I don't think they took a kneecap off. And
they certainly tried. They made a good comeback, and they were actually in position to tie the game. So, I mean, credit to the Detroit Lions for still fighting, because they were down 31-10 at some point. So,
yep.
I mean, now they lost their starting cornerback or whatever his name, the guy from Ohio State.
Okuda.
Yeah, Okuda. He's done. I think he tore his Achilles.
Jared Goff 3 touchdowns and an interception. I forgot to point that out with his new team.
Nearly 340 yards. I mean, what else does a guy have to do?
There's nobody on that team. It's
literally Stafford 2.0. I mean, and he's not as good as Stafford either. I mean,
no, but also the Trey Lance era began. He scored his first NFL touchdown.
That's right.
San Francisco, like I told you guys, they're bringing back a lot of weapons, and Jimmy G looked good. He looked good too. So,
agreed.
The Texans over the Jaguars. 2 things from me. The Tyrod Taylor finally gets a fair shake in this league, and he looked incredible. Almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer, their debut coach quarterback. Trevor Lawrence threw 3 touchdowns, but threw 3 picks. Houston looked pretty good amidst all the drama, the Deshaun Watson trash I won't get into, but hey, they won.
Yeah, I think for me, I was going to say Tyrod Taylor as well. Great to see him finally get an opportunity, and I think he can really be a solid quarterback for them this year. They're not a playoff team, I don't think, by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he can have a pretty nice year. And for Lawrence and Urban Meyer, for me, the thing is, I mean, they lost. Neither guy is used to losing, but I think this year they're going to have to get used to losing. I mean, this is a team that's probably going to, lose 11, 12 games, I think. So I think it's going to be a long season for the Jags, and that's just going to be how it is. I mean, they're just at that point right now.
Well, I don't know how used to it Urban Meyer's going to get, because rumors are he's going to be one and done.
He's got an old heart problem.
He's going to USC at the end of the year. I don't know how true that rumor is, but that's the rumor that's out there. Is he's going to USC. Again, Trevor Lawrence, his first loss in the regular season ever. He never lost the game in high school. He never lost the regular season game in college. Obviously, the only loss they really had in the regular season when he was there was against Notre Dame, but he didn't play that game, right? Because he was out with COVID. But shout out to Tyrod Taylor. I mean, you guys keep saying he's getting a fair shake here. I mean, he kind of had a fair shake in Buffalo. He took him to the playoffs when he was there, but obviously then he got kicked out for Josh Allen. Yeah. But there's not much to say here. The
maybe
Texans
fair shake's not the word. Yeah. I mean,
he's finally getting a chance to start again, is what you should say.
After getting stabbed in the lung.
Yeah, he really got screwed last year. Of course, the guy who replaced him was Rookie of the Year and had a fantastic season. So,
and it's looking pretty good now.
Yeah.
The Seahawks 28, the Colts 16. Carson Wentz starting with his new team, the Colts, and Seattle. Russell Wilson. Can this be Russell Wilson's year to get MVP?
Listen, we did this last year. We did this last season. I mean, he starts up the season great, and then they fall apart kind of at the end. It's the same thing with the Raiders, but at least they can make the play. At least the Seahawks can make the playoffs.
Right.
They're definitely going to be a lot better position this year with home field advantage. But I mean, let's be honest. I don't think Russell Wilson's winning the MVP this season. Something's going to happen. This offensive line is going to fall into shambles, and he's going to be running for his life again. But I mean, for Indianapolis, the Carson Wentz era starts with a loss, and he didn't necessarily look that great. So,
yeah. I don't have anything to say about this game. I mean, Russell Wilson, it looked like classic Russell Wilson to me. I mean, kind of what we used to see from him on a weekly basis just a couple years ago. But I kind of agree with Carlos. They always start the season hot, but it's just going to depend on can they stay consistent throughout the year. I think that's a big thing this year with Seattle. And it's going to help them having a home field advantage, especially a lot more than any other team up there with Kansas City.
The Arizona Cardinals, in my opinion, upsetting the Tennessee Titans, who...
Oh, yeah, it was definitely an upset.
Yeah, I was shocked to see this. Kyler Murray, almost 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, only 1 pick, 38-13.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we got to start with Chandler Jones getting 5 sacks. Of course, Chandler Jones, the younger brother to Johnny Bones Jones, the light heavyweight, former light heavyweight champion, soon to be heavyweight champion. That's a very talented family.
That's for another podcast.
That's not for another podcast. We got to show how talented that family is. All 3 brothers have gold in their closets.
I just didn't want to start a 30-minute conversation.
No, we're not going to start a conversation about John Jones. He's not even fighting right now. But I mean, the fact that family is that talented, where you got 2 brothers in the NFL, and then you got one that's dominating the MMA fights.
Pretty good.
I mean, pretty talented family. And then you got JJ Watt right there too, who was part of another talented trio of brothers. I mean, yeah, Arizona looked good. Tennessee, that defense still looks bad. It still looks bad. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and Derrick Henry only 58 yards. I think that's what I take away from all this.
Well, he doesn't normally start the season hot.
That's true.
It normally takes him a little bit to get going.
Yeah, that's a good point. Huge win for Kyler Murray, though. Definitely a huge confidence booster for him.
But especially with all
the talk this year about he and Cliff Kingsbury and their futures with the Cardinals and especially Cliff Kingsbury because he's the coach. Mm-hmm. And it's a little easier to fire the coach than it is the guy who's supposed to be your franchise quarterback. So, huge win for them, especially on the road as well, which was very impressive.
The Dolphins beating the Patriots by points 17-16, a battle between 2 former Alabama quarterbacks. Mac Jones getting his first start in a Patriots uniform. He goes 29 for 39, 281 yards and a touchdown. He seemed adequate for the position, and there's a lot for him to learn, but this could be the answer for New England. But just 1-point game. What a great way to start out the division rivalry right there.
Yeah, Mac Jones looked good, but I mean, obviously the battle of the quarterbacks for who was better quarterback at Alabama has to go to Tua now because he beat him fair and square. I mean, obviously New England was driving down the field, and obviously who was it? Damian Harris fumbled. I want to say, he fumbled the ball. So, that's going to be an issue. He's probably not going to play for the rest of the season because, Bill Belichick doesn't like that. and that costed them the game there. They were driving. They just needed to get in a field goal range. But, I mean, overall, again, Jalen Waddle is going to be a problem in the NFL. He was really good. So, but Mac Jones, he passed every test you needed him to pass for this game.
Yeah, this was just a fun game. I think in general. I mean, the story behind it, the backstory between, the two former Alabama quarterbacks, two teams that are trying to kind of find their footing, especially in that division. It was a hard fought, nose to the grindstone kind of game, and that's really all I would say. I think it was a good one.
The New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers playing in Jacksonville due to Hurricane Ida. I think that's who it was.
Yep, it's Ida.
Yeah, Ida.
Yeah, it was. I think that's who it was.
Yep. I can't keep track anymore. The Saints over the Packers, 38-3. Aaron Rodgers just and the surgery worked for Jameis. 5 touchdowns. He can finally see.
Big week for LASIK surgery. Everybody's going to get LASIK now. I'm going to go get LASIK because, I'm wearing glasses.
Yes.
But I will say this for Packers fans who think it's the end of the world, I'm going to say something that your quarterback once said that became famous.
Relax.
RELAX. Relax.
Yeah,
He'll be fine. Too. It's week 1. They suck in Florida. This happened. And then, of course, the stat that everybody's bringing up. Hey, Tampa Bay lost 38-3 to New Orleans in week 1, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. It's not over yet. 16 games, sprint, not a marathon, or it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Not a sprint.
That's
right.
the way it goes. So relax. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I would say, a fluke game for the Packers. This is not going to be who they are all season. There's no way. But a huge win for Jameis Winston, and and his legend, which for a long time has been a guy who throws 30 touchdowns and also 30 interceptions. So
30 for 30.
Yeah.
Stop, Kirby. Stop. It's fucking gross.
Boy.
At times he really did have some Drew Brees kind of passes though, that old Drew Brees, not late.
And then shout out to Drew Brees for making fun of himself, being like, oh, that's what they need was a guy who could throw the deep ball.
Yes. I love it. Drew Brees, great hire there at NBC.
Yeah, he's going to be great when he finally gets into Sunday Night Football.
When he takes his toupee off. Yeah.
The Denver Broncos over the New York Giants 27-13. Teddy Bridgewater, his first start as a Bronco, 264 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Giants looked like the
Giants,
classic Giants.
Yeah. Yeah. Daniel Jones sucks. I think that's my takeaway from this.
Daniel Jones sucks. The Giants suck. Saquon did not look great. He did not look good.
Wasn't their leading rusher.
The craziest thing that I saw that came out of that game was, Von Miller telling Teddy Bridgewater he hasn't felt this way about playing football since 18 was there. So obviously that means since Peyton Manning was there. So that's high praise for Teddy Bridgewater. I think Teddy Bridgewater has finally found his team. I think the Denver Broncos are going to do very well. Obviously they're not going to beat Kansas City. Maybe they'll beat Kansas City once, but Kansas City is obviously going to probably win this division, but don't count Denver out to make the playoffs. Oh, and we hope for a speedy recovery to Jerry Jeudy because that sucks.
Yeah, it's awful.
Last but not least, to wrap up rapid fire, the Los Angeles Rams opening up SoFi Stadium, hosting the Chicago Bears. My gosh, Matt Stafford with the deep ball looked great. Andy Dalton threw a pick. Justin Fields,
of course he did,
10 yards.
Look, shout out to Matthew Stafford for proving why they brought him in.
It was
his first pass
man.
As a Ram was a deep touchdown pass. This is going to be so exciting to watch. I'm telling you, fun. LA is going to be a problem in the NFC. And a lot of I won't be surprised if three teams from the NFC West make it into the playoffs and one of them dethrones Tampa Bay, because Tampa Bay has a lot of talent. But with what the hell they're doing in the West and the NFC best, it's nuts. But also Chicago, Nagy's gonna eventually get fired this season. Honestly, he's not gonna make it out alive. And Justin Fields, I do think it's the best for him to sit on the bench, because I'd rather Andy Dalton get annihilated than Justin Fields.
Yeah, behind that offensive line, that's what's best. We saw what happened to Joe Burrow. Also, give Fields a chance to slowly adjust to the regular season speed of the NFL, because remember, he said the game was slower than he expected in the preseason when he was going against second and third string guys. But yeah, this was a really happy moment for Matt Stafford. I mean, this was like a party for him to finally go to a team that has immense talent around him, a good defense, fans that actually show up to the games and care. I mean, I know Lions fans, you know, they used to be pretty passionate, but let's face it, they've kind of lost interest. This was just this was everything he could have asked for and more, I think, just to start the season. And you could see how happy he was. And I can't remember a time he was this happy with Detroit. I know there were times he was happy, but
not like this. Not where
like
he
this.
was just slinging
This
the
is
ball
different.
and he knew something was going to happen. Also,
he's like a kid in the backyard. So
Also, shout out to NBC for showing some random woman in the crowd and trying to claim
Yeah.
that was his wife.
that was so weird. And they kept doing it. Like, you would think after the first time someone would, a producer
man.
would say,
What a
hey,
botch.
that's the wrong person. That is the wrong person.
They screwed
Wow.
that one.
What a mess.
This has been Rapid Fire on the Kirby on Sports podcast. When we return, we will wrap things up right after this.
Hey there, this is Mark Francis of Icon Real Estate. If you have any real estate needs in the Winchester surrounding area, including West Virginia, give me a call. I've got extensive experience, been in the business for almost 20 years, and would love to help you out. Track me down at Icon Real Estate, iconsells.com, or even give me a call, 540-247-1527. Again, Icon Sells, ICONSELLS.com, and I would love to chat with you and help you out. Give me a call.
All right, we are back to wrap things up. I'm here with Dan and Carlos. Gentlemen, starting with you, Dan, what are you looking out for week 2 in the
last
NFL?
word. This is the last word segment.
The last
Looking
word.
forward to for this. Actually, it's this week now. Shoot.
Week
That's a good
2.
question. I got to think about this. Go to Carlos first.
Carlos, go ahead.
I mean, I can tell you real quickly. I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to Lamar versus Patrick Mahomes. It's always a great matchup when those two play. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see how Baltimore responds. Obviously, now Kansas City is going to be on the road, so they won't have the home crowd to, pump them up if they fall behind. And then also, obviously, my Cowboys, going to LA to play the Chargers. Obviously, last time we were in LA, we did not play good against the Rams, and we opened SoFi Stadium for that game. And we're opening SoFi Stadium for the Chargers fans. But I mean, let's be honest, it's going to be a home game for the Cowboys because there's no Chargers fans in LA. They're all in San Diego and they hate the Chargers now. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how Dallas, now knowing how good they can be, how are they going to overcome these couple of injuries that we've had and how we play. And then last thing I'm looking forward to is to see how Washington responds with Taylor Heineke as the full-time starter.
I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Cowboys and Chargers as my lone what to look out for, because like I said, it's going to be an interesting matchup watching the Chargers and what they did last week and looking at what Dallas had on that Thursday night. This could be a close game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I have two. I'm going to go with the Titans trying to bounce back on the road against Seattle. Going to be a very tough game.
Brutal.
Kind of want to see how they adjust after getting their asses handed to them in week 1. So, looking forward to seeing how they do in that situation. Right now Seattle's a touchdown, a 5.5 point favorite. So, if you're a betting person, just in case you were curious. And then my second pick is a little different. Bills at the Dolphins. I think it's going to be a fun game. We'll get a chance to kind of see where the Dolphins are, because I think last week was it was too hard fought of a game to sort of get a gauge on either team, I think. So this will kind of give you a read of where Tua and that team are as a whole. And then really you want to see the Bills bounce back and play better offensively and see if Josh Allen, who should have more success against the Dolphins, see if he bounces back. So those are my two things I'm looking out for. I'm going to stay away from my team because I don't want to say anything. So
that about does it for the week 1 edition of the Kirby on Sports podcast. We're so glad that football is back. Make sure you stick with us the entire football season, and we will make sure to break it down for you the best we can. For Dan Demski and Carlos Martinez, I am Josh Kirby. For our sponsors, Regroup Building Services, PM Plus Reserves, Shenandoah Primitives, Dr. Dave Leadership Corporation, and Mark Francis with Icon Real Estate. Make sure you check us out, all streaming platforms, all social media platforms. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Check out everything. www.kirbyonsports.com. Until the next time you hear us, always remember to create greatness. So long and peace out.